Good morning, everyone. Good evening for those who are joining from East Coast of the United States. Thank you very much for joining 10th Health Security Dialogue hosted by Global Health Innovation Policy Program at GRIPS. My name is Hiromi Murakami of Global Health Innovation Policy Program, facilitating this dialogue series. We're honored to welcome a distinguished guest from Washington, D.C., Alyssa Alban of Pfizer Corporation. We all know Pfizer plays such an important role in this pandemic. And we're less than a month away from having Olympic Games in Tokyo. And COVID-19 vaccination is unlikely to be done for all population before the Olympic game. So we're a bit worried because vaccines are the only solution at this moment. Today, we're so fortunate to have Alyssa Alban, who leads Pfizer's global trade policy team. We have seen unprecedented speed in developing vaccines by pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer. And without vaccines, we're not able to feel safety in this situation today. So we sincerely appreciate a perspective from industry side and how Alyssa sees challenges and lessons learned. So let's get started with me asking a basic question. Okay, Alyssa, please tell us about your background and how you came to your current role, especially for Japanese audience. People are not familiar with the trade policy, so if we could elaborate on that would be very helpful. And for the audience, this is, we're taking Chatham House rule, so please note about this talk today. Thank you.
Thank you, Harumi. So it's wonderful to be in front of an audience with so many viewers from Japan, because Japan is actually really where I started my interest in trade. As you mentioned, I studied East Asian Studies in college, and I was concentrating in Japan. And really, it was the US-Japan trade conflicts, the trade relationship that caught my attention when I was just 20 years old. And what is trade policy? Well, it's a whole range of policies that govern how countries our commercial relationship with each other. So trade is powerful and it's omnipresent. We all recognize that we live in a globalized world with lots of, transit of goods and services every day. We all take advantage of international trade flows in our ordinary lives. And trade policy is really the rules and principles that govern that relationship between countries. And so, in my career, as you mentioned, I started out practicing trade law. There's obviously a lot of legal rules, both domestic and international, that govern how countries work together commercially. And so that was the start of my career. And then I came to an agency called the United States Trade Representative's Office, which in the United States, USTR is the principal agency responsible for US trade policy. So when the United States has a trade negotiation with another country, USTR is the lead agency responsible for coordinating the US government's positions in that negotiation. Similarly, USTR is the chief agency responsible for representing the United States in the World Trade Organization. So that was a tremendous experience. I did that for, as you said, about 8 years. And then I went to the Hill. And, as you might know, in the United States, the trade policy in the United States is really a partnership between the executive branch and Congress. And so when I shifted over to Congress, I had been serving in the executive branch. I went over to Congress and I got to experience the full range of perspectives that Congress brings to bear on trade policy. And as I said, it's a partnership. So one of the cornerstones of that partnership has historically been a piece of legislation called Trade Promotion Authority. And what Trade Promotion Authority does in the United States is it basically sets out Congress's priorities in trade policy, as well as procedures for the executive branch to follow in terms of engaging with Congress and negotiating trade agreements. So that was a fascinating experience to help reauthorize that cornerstone piece of legislation. And I spent several years at the Finance Committee working on that legislation and some other legislative initiatives on trade policy. And then I decided to make the leap to the private sector, and I came to Pfizer just in 2018. So it's been an extraordinary time here at Pfizer, of course, and but that was sort of my journey to get here. In terms of trade policy, like I said, it can be a very broad range of issues that come up in the world of trade. Frankly, trade policy can touch on so many parts of people's lives that I think sometimes it can kind of scare people a little bit, because it has so many broad implications for what we do every day. And as I said, you rattled off some of my portfolio responsibilities. So when you're talking about environment or labor or the full range customs issues, it touches on so many parts of US and international policy. But here at Pfizer, my team plays two roles, and I'll just kind of illustrate a few of the issues that we tend to spend most of our time on. So the first thing, of course, as you said, we're responsible for coordinating trade policy across the markets we serve. Pfizer's in so many international markets. And as a global manufacturer and innovator, trade affects many, many parts of our business. And so for us, it can be anything from tariffs to customs policy, market access issues, intellectual property rights, even digital trade and health-related services issues can bring up trade aspects of the relationship with governments. So we really deal with trade policy across a wide range of issues, and we deal with it in many different fora. So of course there's bilateral relationships like the US-Japan trade relationship, but there's also international relationships like the World Trade Organization. We have the OECD, the G7, the G20, and all of these institutions have some role in thinking about trade policy. And so what we try to do is, working across a broad range of colleagues across many markets, we try to draw on all of their expertise to come up with a policy that overall works for the company. So that's our primary role. I'll say that we also serve another role, which is an international government affairs function here in Washington. So we work very regularly with the embassies here, to help coordinate on a broader range of issues. And of course, with the vaccine, that job has become even more complex. And, I'll just say it has been humbling to witness our scientific teams, our manufacturing teams, our logistics colleagues. It's really been a whole of company effort to develop, manufacture, and deliver the vaccine all over the world.